Hey, this is Tom, and today I'm going to show you the speed sculpt of this lady gnome. I wanted to take a moment of your time to tell you about my new Kickstarter, the Gnome Guard, which is live on Kickstarter now. This set of fastidious gnomes are ready to preserve and protect their gardens. Led by the gnome greenskeeper and separated into 4 groups of 5 gnomes each, separated by tool types. You'll be able to ward off any menacing pests that come your way. Just click the link in the description below and add these guys to your collection. Alright, it's time to get sculpting. Back in early 2019, about a year after I had made my goblin set, my initial goblin set, I was going through a big sense of nostalgia. I had just found one of my favorite cartoons of all time on DVD called Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics. It used to be shown on Nickelodeon, and it just was always such an inspiration, especially for what I was doing with the goblins and Adventures of Little Knife and Cronin. And so I decided I wanted to sculpt a gnome. And there was actually another cartoon out at the time, this very same time, called David the Gnome. And one of the things I wanted to do with my goblins was have a bunch of fun little characters that they could annoy. So I thought, I'm going to make David the Gnome. So I did that. There's a couple previous videos you can check out where you can see me sculpting on that guy, where I made an integral base, and I did a review of Bees Putty Triple Firm, and I really liked how it turned out. Well, it's a smaller figure, like a lot of these in the line, and so I wanted to have a companion figure, and of course, if I'm doing David the Gnome, then I have to sculpt his wife Lisa. So that's what I'm doing here today, and what I've been using for these last couple videos is sculpting Lisa Rumpelstump, that's the last name that I decided to give my version of not David the Gnome's. And if you haven't been following along in the past couple videos, I am sculpting this figure using Bees Putty Quadruple Firm. It's quite a firm putty. I believe it's their firmest. Before this, I'd only done a lot with the Bees Putty Plastic Firm and the Triple Firm. It's a very, very nice material. I'm still not sure if I prefer triple or this, because as you'll see towards the end of the video of the speed sculpt, I did end up having to switch over to Triple Firm. I just wasn't used to doing my finer details with the Quadruple Firm yet. But as I went along and started to do certain parts, I ended up kind of missing. Thinking to myself, oh, maybe I should have kept going with the Quadruple Firm. But it is significantly harder. So if you're not used to that, it will take a bit to retrain your hands and how hard to press with your tools. Speaking of tools, I'm sculpting the majority of this with Bees Putty sculpting tools. These are 2 that I received from Stefan a while ago. Finally got a chance to use them, and since then he has a ton of other versions of these available on his site. They're really, really nice, high quality. If you want to have a quality set of tools that you can customize to have different ends exactly as you need them or want them, I don't think anybody else is doing it quite as good as he is. One of the things I've enjoyed the most about sculpting these 2 gnome figures is it's a very simple sculpt. What I mean by that is it's not that there's less details or anything like that. It's more that it's just a very simple form to practice on. You know, you saw in the beginning when I first started this, I just started with a single post. I didn't have to worry about making an armature for the arms, armature for the legs. It's just a single post that I built on to create this figure, and it looks like it is a complete figure. And that is a great way to practice sculpting, because a lot of times, especially when you're starting out, you can spend a lot of time trying to get the proportions right, trying to build your armature, your understructure, just so, in order to have everything look good and make sense down the line. It's very easy early on to have difficulties with that step and create a lot of hurdles for you to overcome as you go down the line. So one of the simplest ways around that is to not worry about it. You just make a single central piece to build your figure on and come up with a design that is less complicated. In the case of these gnomes, I mean, you could do anything. You could make, to stay on the gnome theme, you can make a little mushroom. You could, I don't know what else you could do. You could do all sorts of things. It's up to you and what you like, but the point is try and come up with something that isn't going to have a lot of extraneous parts. It allows you to adjust the proportions on the fly a lot easier when you just have a single mass to deal with rather than being tied to the understructure of an actual armature. You'll probably notice as the sculpt progresses that I started to use some of my traditional tools more and more. Like I said, I absolutely love the Bees Putty tools, but anytime you switch, it takes a little bit to get used to, and I just needed to get this figure done. So, in the interest of time and my sanity, I decided to, I still ended up using the Bees Putty tools for a vast amount of this sculpt. I did shift over to my tried and true elements that I knew what I was going to get. I just, I've got the muscle memory built up, and I knew what I was going to get. But as I do more, I will absolutely be using these Bees Putty tools in my main toolkit. I'm just going to let the time lapse play out for a bit, but stick around to the end as I'll have a few more things to share. My daughter came in while I was recording this and told me her favorite thing about these gnomes are their noses, and that she thinks that the word gnome might come from the word nose. Probably not it, but I like it. It's a fun take. I haven't done this in a while, but I plan to make a sculptorial video. That's what I call my real-time, full-length video recordings of anything I'm working on. I haven't done one of those in a while, but this one would be especially nice because it's a full sculpt from start to finish. I post those up on my Patreon for my patrons, so if you'd like to check that out, head over there. And if you like this figure, and David Rumpelstump as well, of course, my hope is to release these as one of the free stretch goals on my current Gnome Guard Kickstarter. So if that does well enough, that's where they'll be available. Otherwise, I will mold them and cast them eventually and have them available on my website. I'd love to hear your suggestions of figures in this vein, like these little gnomes. Simple sculpts that would be great for practicing. Might even give one a try if one of the suggestions seems interesting enough. So please share down in the comments below. Don't forget to sign up for my mailing list. It's the best way to keep track of when I post these videos, what else I'm working on, cool stuff I've seen in the miniatures industry, and I also plan to share mini thoughts, just my thoughts on the industry or figure sculpting, other little tidbits beyond what I'm posting here on YouTube. I look forward to seeing any of your other comments and questions. I'm going to let the rest of the speed sculpt play out, but before I go, I need to tell you, remember, keep sculpting.